vertical black hoses beneath the raised hood. Rorie looked at her watch and moaned. If she wasn't in Seattle before 6, she'd lose her hotel reservation. This vacation wasn't starting out well, not at all, and she'd had such high expectations for the next 2 weeks. "I think you've got a leak in your water pump," the teenager stated, sounding as though he knew what he was talking about. "But it's hard to tell with all that fancy stuff they got in these foreign cars. Clay can tell you for sure." "Clay? My brother. Is he a mechanic?" Rorie's hopes soared. "He's done his share of working on cars, but he's not a mechanic." Rorie gnawed on her lower lip as her spirits plummeted again. Her first concern was getting to a phone. She'd make the necessary arrangements to have the car repaired, and then call the hotel to ask if they'd hold her room. Depending on how close she was to the nearest town, Rorie figured it would take an hour for a tow truck to arrive, and then another for it to get her car to a garage. Once there, the repairs shouldn't take too long. Just how hard could it be to fix a water pump? "How far is it to a phone?" The young man grinned and pointed toward his horse. "Just over that ridge." Rorie relaxed. At least that part wasn't going to be much of a problem. "About 10 miles, he finished. 10 miles? Rorie leaned her weight against the side of the car. This was the last time she'd ever take the scenic route, and the last time she'd ever let Dan talk her into borrowing his car. "Don't worry, you won't have to walk. Venture can handle both of us. You don't look like you weigh much." "Venture?" Rorie was beginning to feel like an echo. "My horse." Rorie's gaze shifted to the stallion, who had lowered his head to sample the tall hillside grass. Now that she had a chance to study him, she realized what an extraordinarily large animal he was. Rorie hadn't been on the back of a horse since she was a child. Somehow, the experience of riding a pony in a slow circle with a bunch of other 6-year-olds didn't lend her much confidence now. You want me to ride double with you?" She was wearing a summer dress, and mounting a horse might prove interesting. She eyed the stallion, wondering how she could manage to climb into the saddle and still maintain her dignity. "You wearing a dress and all could make that difficult." The boy rubbed the side of his jaw, frowning doubtfully. "I could wait here until someone else comes along," she offered. He used his index finger to set his snap-brim hat further back on his head. "You might do that," he drawled, "but it could be another day or so, if you're lucky." "Oh, dear." "I suppose I could head back to the house and grab the pickup," he suggested. It sounded like a stroke of genius to Rorie. "Would you? Listen, I'd be more than happy to pay you for your time." He gave her an odd look. "Why would you want to do that? I'm only doing the neighborly thing." Rorie smiled at him. She'd lived in San Francisco most of her life. She loved everything about the city by the bay, but she couldn't have named the couple in the apartment next door had her life depended on it. People in the city kept to themselves. "By the way," he said, wiping his hands with the bright blue handkerchief, "the name's Skip. Skip Franklin." Rorie eagerly shook his hand, overwhelmingly grateful that he'd happened along when he did. "Rorie Campbell." "Pleased to meet you, ma'am." "Me too, Skip." The teenager grinned. "Now you stay right here and I'll be back before you know it." He paused, apparently considering something else. "You'll be all right by yourself, won't you?" "Oh, sure. Don't worry about me." She braced her feet wide apart and held up her hands in the classic karate position. "I can take care of myself. I've had 3 self-defense lessons." Skip chuckled, ambled toward Venture, and swung up into the saddle. Within minutes, he disappeared over the ridge. Rorie watched him until he was out of sight, then walked over to the grassy hillside and sat down, arranging her dress carefully around her knees. The cow she'd been conversing with earlier glanced in her direction, and Rorie felt obliged to explain. "He's gone for help," she called out. "Said it was the neighborly thing to do."